Hello, my name is Reshama Shaikh, and my presentation is Animating Visualizations in Python with Plotly. A little bit about me. I'm a statistician based in New York City, and I am the founder of Data Umbrella, which is a community for underrepresented persons in data science. I am also a triage team member for scikit-learn, the machine learning library of Python, and I am a co-organizer for the New York City chapter of PyLadies. You can find me on Twitter, GitHub, and LinkedIn at Reshama S. The code for this presentation is available under my repo, so it's at github.com/my username, which is Reshama S, RESHAMAS, /plotly-animations. So a little bit about the data that I used for this presentation. It is from the Johns-Hopkins COVID-19 dataset. It includes a number of cases and deaths by day from January 2020 to present, and it's available for about 200 countries. So I'm going to begin by going over the data a bit and then how to do a 2-line graph example, and then moving on to a 3-line graph example. So, setting up the data. This code, if you clone the repo and run the code, assuming the libraries are installed, you should be able to recreate the data set. And so just to give you an idea of what the raw data set looks like, the very raw data set, it is province, state, country, region by day, and this is what it is, okay? And it is in this repository right here. And it's like US and global cases and deaths over time. All right, and so I'm going to close that. And so what I did was I pulled the data set, the cases and deaths with their 2 separate files. I merged them in together. I did a bit of cleaning up. I changed the data set is structured so the dates go across the columns, and so I made them come down to rows. I added some variable names. I added in some derived variables like the date of the very first case, the date of the very first death. I renamed some of the countries. And so I did a bit of cleaning up. And so I outputted a file, and the file that I output is a feather file. It's a data frame that is output to feather format. And what I'm doing, this is what it looks like in the end. I have a column for country, region. I have a date. I have the cases and deaths per, this is a cumulative number, cases and deaths. But if we go here, there's also a daily case count and a daily death count, as well as the day of the case and the day of the death. Okay? And so, as I mentioned, it's output to a feather file, and which is right over here, which is right there. And so in my examples, I'm going to be reading in this feather file. So first of all, I am going to go to a documentation example to see how to begin, okay, and how to get used to doing these animations in Plotly. So the first thing I do is I'm reading in the standard libraries, NumPy, Pandas, and Plotly.GraphObjects. This is where the data set is, and in this case we have date. The way that the data is given to us and used here is a column for date. And for this example, we're really interested in the Apple stock prices for the high and the low for the day. It's really these 3 columns. Okay, and this is the example given to us in the documentation. And when I run it, this is what the outcome is. So I hit play here. And notice that this, I'm hovering over it, this is the high, and this is the low, which is a trace 0, it's assigned to that. And it looks like it begins at about February 20th, 2015, and it goes out to February 14th, 2017, so about 2 years worth of data. So we're going to begin with the sample, with this example, and use the COVID data set and add some extras to it. So some of the things that we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to extend the x-axis and even the y-axis. We're going to figure out how to add a legend here. We're going to look at the data structure to see how it's expecting the data to be and how you could use your data set to create this animated example. And I am going to go over to this file, which is the animation line plot. And I am as well reading in the standard libraries. I am reading in the feather file that I created before. And to give you an idea, just a reminder, I have a column for countries, I have a column for date, and I have the variable that I am interested in is the daily case count. Okay. For this example, there's about 200 countries in the data set, so I'm interested in a subset of the data. So I'm going to look at India and the United States, and so I'm going to filter it. And I'm going to restructure the data set in a way that will work with this example. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so what I've done is I've restructured it so the date has a column and the country each has a column, in this case India and the United States, and this represents the daily case count. So back here, some of the things that I did is for India, for example, I assigned it the name 1 is equal to India, name 2 is equal to United States, and this is going to help us with the legends. For group 1, which happens to be all the daily case counts for, say, India, we're just going to convert it to a list, and this is going to help us do the animated frames over time. As well, I printed out the minimum value and the maximum value for group 1, and so that this means that the lowest case count is minus 1858, and the highest is 414,000, and this will be likely for the India. And then for the US, it is 0 and that. So this, we see it's a negative number. This is a data error, and sometimes they fix it, but right now that is what is in our data set. The first date for this data set is January 22nd, 2020, and it runs up to September 3rd. And so the minimum, what I'm doing is for the X minimum, instead of starting at January 22nd, I'm going to assign it to just the first of the month. And for the maximum, I'm going to just say September 3rd, I'm just going to make it a month later to add some margins to the graph. And for the Y min and the max is I'm taking the lowest level of the case count and the highest level, and I'm just adding a little buffer to it. Okay. And so what this trace here does is it creates, that trace is called one line, and the second trace is the line for, this one is for India, this one is for the United States. Is that how we did? Yep, we did India first and then the United States. Okay, and then I am going to run this part. Okay, so I'm going to hit play here, and notice that in our example, India shows up here, the United States shows up, a title has been added. The title has been added in layout.update. The range for the x-axis is the x min and the x max that was specified earlier. The y-axis is, I've also specified over here, and I've added a title. So when I hit play, notice, remember the very first is like January 22nd, and this adds a little buffer, and this is where it goes. This is the animation. You can see it. This is the India wall that went up, and India, the US has been fluctuating, and India is down here. Okay, so this has had to do with animated line plot using data. And again, the best way to do it is to structure your data set so there's a date column or something for the x-axis. It could be days, it could be, month, it could be whatever you would like in terms of a time variable on the x-axis. And then these two represent either, in this case, it's country. In the previous example, it was the apple, high, low. And what I did over here was I created a general example. So I have event dates over here, and this one is January 1st. This is by, say, month, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so this is January 1st through October, and then January 1st through October. I have two groups, A and B. I have some outcome associated, and I have a data frame that is created. Okay, and so, if you want to structure your data with some kind of an event date, a group ID, A, B, and an outcome, and then this part here just sort of restructures the data set. So the A becomes a column here, the B becomes a column there, and there we go. Notice that it's event date, A and B. It also assigns them some min and max values for it. And I'm going to run this plot here. So notice this is where it says add a title here, which is over there. If we hit play, this is a small data set, but it shows like where it starts and where it goes. And so you could begin with this general example and edit it. Okay. So the question that people have asked on the forums for this is, well, how do I extend this to 3 lines? So, Plotly is, I would say it's fairly new in the animation part in terms of what's available. And so the way to extend this to 3 groups is, I'm going to go over here in this example, and I am going to read the same data in again. And so what I did in this case was, in my country list, where I'm taking a subset of the data. Remember, our data is like there's various countries, there's a date, one row for each day since January 20th to present, and the daily case count over time. So in this example, I'm going to choose 3 countries, India, US, and Brazil. And so how do we get 3 lines? So this part is pretty much the same. What happens here is I need to add another name variable for the 3rd country, and I need to take the data, the daily case count, and convert it to a list format for the frame. This does the min max again. Notice this time I'm taking the minimum of all 3 groups to get the one minimum, and then of all the max of the 3 groups, I want the main max. So notice this data frame has a date column. It has Brazil, India, and in this case, United States. And so what I did was, remember we had trace 1 and we had trace 2 over here. So this time I added a trace 3 and I called it with name equals name 3. I added another frame for the dictionary. So each group has its own frame that it goes over time. And so I added this frame here, which is for group 3. In this one, which it iterates over the 3 traces. So before it was 0, 1, I added 2 here. This part did not change. And this is where the minimum for the x-axis is and the y, and you can adjust it as you wish. And this is the title. And in the figure where it specified what data is going into the graphs, it was trace 1 and 2, but this time I added a trace 3. And the frames equals frames, and the layout is equals layout, right? So I'm going to hit play here. And notice I now have 3 lines that go over time. And it starts at January 22nd, but my axis goes out here. And we can see that this is India had this really high peak, the US had a really high peak, and Brazil is over here. Okay? And this is daily cases over time. Okay? And so this was the, it just means that we can extend this to a 3-line example. I imagine as the library gets more sophisticated, they're going to make this a little bit easier, but right now they are separate traces, and we could also write this as a function to make it multiple traces over time. But this is one way to go and have a 3-line animation plot. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to try an animated scatter plot using the COVID-19 data. So I am going to start by reading in the libraries that I need. I'm going to read in that feather file that has my cleaned up COVID data. I am going to use a subset of the data. And in this example, I am picking about 8 countries. So India, US, Brazil, Italy, UK, Turkey, and Mexico. In this line right here, I just changed the United Kingdom. I relabeled it to UK, and I'll show you why I did that in a minute. And just to make it sort of easier to figure out what we're doing, I took a subset of the columns, just the ones that we really need, okay? So in this case, I need the date. Remember, each day has its own row, the country, the cases, and in this case, this represents total cases. It's a cumulative count, so it's up to a certain day. This is a daily case count, so this is the daily case count, 15,244 for India on January 20th, 2021. This is the number of the daily deaths, and this was the total number of deaths to date for January 20th. For the United States, for May 1st, 2020, these are the numbers, okay? And so some of the things to consider when doing a scatter plot is that it's not entirely clear. It takes some thought to figure out what exactly we want to show on the x-axis and the y-axis and the frames. And so I'm going to run this, and I'm going to show you. It's taking a bit of time, and that's because we do have quite a bit of data, right? We have for 3 countries. No, actually, it's 8 countries over time, so it's running. Okay, there we go. It's running. The title is coronavirus cases over time. Notice here, range of X tells me what the min and the max for the X-axis, and the range of Y is the min and the max for the Y-axis. So I'm going from 0. I picked cases over time. So cases are here, and deaths are over here. And so deaths go from 0 to 800, 900,000, and the number of cases go from 0 to 45 million, okay? And notice that it begins with January 22nd. 2020 is when data was available up to there. All right, I'm going to hit play. So the US is one of the countries where the case builds up, and the circle of the graph represents the total number of cases over time. So notice the number of cases is going up, the number of deaths is going up, and this circle is getting larger because it's the cumulative cases. Okay. So the reason that I renamed the UK is this text was getting very large, so I made it a little bit smaller so it could fit in there. I didn't add a legend, and the reason is that right now there's a bug in the code where when I do add a legend, it actually doesn't work. It doesn't appear here. So I edited it and I said show legend is equal to false, but hopefully that will get fixed. This size underscore max equals 65 controls the maximum size of these circles. That can be adjusted. The color is country. We can also hover over it as well. We can see for Brazil on September 3rd, there were 20,850,000 cases and 582,000 deaths. There are some adjustments that we can make. For instance, we can adjust the frame duration as well, and we can change the color as well. We can, right now the color is by country, but we could change that as well. So I'd like to go over some takeaways. This is a fun way to get started with animations. This Plotly animation, it's a fairly new library and the documentation is limited for animations. It's slowly growing. And so just to go to the documentation, there are current animation limitations, and one of them is that it's designed to work when each row of input is present across all animation frames, right? So in this example, it assumes that for every country, they each have the same number of dates, right? Like every data point has a date present from January 20th to present. And if there's missing data, it will break currently. Right now, they only have smooth frame transitions for scatter and bar plot, so it's still growing, but it is limited. The other thing is that the file sizes are quite large, and so it's important to clear the notebook before saving your files to GitHub. So as an example, if I go over, hang on, just a minute, get this out of the way. If I go over here, notice that when I ran just a documentation example, it is 23.1 megabytes. The 2-line and 3-line examples are 28 and 40 megabytes, and the scatter plot for multiple is 11 megabytes. So when I save my changes to GitHub, I run into errors. And so the way around it for now is to clear the notebook before I push my changes to GitHub. So I just have to do, clear, restart and clear output. So that's important to do. The other thing that can be done, for instance, with the scatter plot, I have it commented out here, but I can write out this actual scatter plot to an HTML file. And in this case, I put it out to, I have a Jekyll blog, and the file name is this right here. And so what I did, I'll just show you how I put it up on my blog. This is, I embedded it, and so I'm going to hit stop, and I'm going to hit it. So this is my website, right? This is my home website. I can go to COVID Plotly Animations, scatter plot, and so it appears here, and I can hit it, and so this is on my website. And so this is a way that I can share this scatter plot with publicly. It's one way to do it. There's some other options too, but notice how I'll just wait till that's complete. Okay, or I can stop it. When I look at the source for this page, over here, this is what it looks like. It's a JavaScript its output, and it has for each frame, it has like Brazil, and it has the size and the reference over time, and this is what the file looks like, the HTML file that produces this plot on the website. So it is pretty big. And when I go to GitHub where I've uploaded it, notice I'm going to come over here, sorry, it's right here. It's a large file, so I think I'm trying to get to assets. Hang on a minute. Let's go over here. If I go to assets, notice that it's 2.08 megabytes, and it says, sorry about that, but we can't view show files that are that large. So it's a large file. So that's just something to keep in mind about the limitations of animations right now. I think it'll get better. So that is that. I would like to, where is that? There we go. Presentation over here. Okay, so with that, I would like to thank the PyGotham organizers and you for watching. And just a reminder that the code for this is available on at my GitHub, Plotly-Animations, and I'm on GitHub at Reshama S. Thank you so much for joining.